Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome back to Jay's One Key Event, 3rd edition, otherwise known as Joke 3. We are now officially done with the round of 16 matches, and we have bid farewell to a number of the 32 competitors that entered the bracket stage, and all that is left to do to round out what has been an electrifying weekend is to give you guys the quarterfinals map pool showcase. As always, my name is Sparky, and I am joined in the commentary booth this time around by none other than Walmart 5193. Walmart, how you doing?
Hey Sparky, it's been going all right. Seeing how we've already made it to the quarterfinals for Joke 3. Our awesome, amazing one key mappers have been cooking up some stuff for all of you players still remaining in the tournament to enjoy. And I think we can keep we can't keep the players waiting any longer. And I think we should get into our first rice pick, which I'll once get all ready for you. And here we are. It's going to be Shaky Sometimes by Venetian Snares.
Yeah, a mainstay of Joke in Venetian Snares returning once again to grace us with what is probably going to be the most straightforward chart of the rice pool. The patterns do start to get a little bit longer as the song progresses, but you get a pretty calm introduction, some LNs to kind of keep you on your toes. For those of you that aren't too comfortable with releases, might want to take some time to make sure that you know when to release those snaps before getting back into the LNs. But ultimately, this is, like I said, probably going to be the most straightforward chart as we progress into this mid to late game.
Yeah, definitely. With these like these 3 doublets as well as with those LNs on the end to kind of just make sure you don't overstream and accidentally hit slider break from one of those LNs. As well as these 2 no doublets, and then overall just some streams in here as well, cranked up to 168 BPM. Thankfully, with the OD being pretty slow, you can probably cheese your way through this, but you would have to look out for those LNs as well.
Yeah, I think the LNs are basically like an overstream check, so as you're not overrunning some of the streams, and you get a really nice, funky 1/8 LN stream to transition on into the back half of the chart. I did get some notes from our wonderful host to talk about some of these charts because I do not know what any of these charts contain because I'm not allowed to be privy to the information, so blind reaction right now. But as you can see,
contain, that's a Venetian Snares reference.
Yeah. Pretty well-known love chart, but as we continue on here, like I mentioned, the streams do start to get longer, and they are capitulated with these LNs at the end. Like I said, basically a bit of an overstream check. You can find yourself running them over and picking up some pretty nasty misses, and if you miss on some of these transitions, you can basically say goodbye to the rest of that stream until the next gap in the notes. So gotta watch out for that. Make sure you are aware of where these are. But I mean, overall, it's pretty telegraphed, and I mean, this is a pretty tame chart for something mapped to Venetian Snares. So as we get to the end, a bit of a calm outro, and that will do it for Rice 1 here.
Yeah, and I did get a note from Jay on this map. Quote: Sparks can't act, hee hee, on that one map on the Venetian Snares chart. But we already jumped into Rice 2. Oh my god, okay. We got Scream Out by A1 featuring Root and Aki, gonna be our Rice 2 pick. 3.9 stars, a bit higher OD this time, and oh, we already have some very fast bursts in there.
Yeah, you get these 1/8 doublets thrown in to some of these 1/4 streams, can mess up your timing a little bit. You can kind of get away with fudging your way through some of those rhythms can kind of play like a 1/4, maybe a 1/6, at the cost of some of your accuracy. But honestly, when you're trying to survive some of these charts, just hanging on to combos is sometimes a better game plan than trying to hack your way through it, because if you start to really overthink some of these structures, that's when the misses do start to come out. And pretty moderate length as well. You get some quick bursts once again through those 1/4. Pretty easy to read through, reminiscent of some of the qualifier charts that you had to go through. And it's nice to see charts that are above 2 minutes in the rice pool.
Yeah, definitely. And I was looking at this, and this is very a few 1/6 bursts I did catch on here.
Yeah, basically just filler inside of those 1/4 streams. But if you were able to play something like Angel Dust this weekend, then it should be reminiscent of that. You should be able to beat up the hands and then transition back out of it pretty quickly. So kind of just this weekend's map pool is kind of preparing you for something like this. So as we continue on here, going into the last quarter, again, just more of the same. If you can it's basically another consistency check. This might be the one map that more rice-oriented players might want to gear towards because of the fact that Rice 1 has so many LNs in it. I wouldn't be surprised if this was one of the more popular picks of next weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I'm pretty sure Angel Dust was our streamy-based pick.
Mm-hmm.
So you can basically just, like you mentioned, this is definitely the Angel Dust of
like a junior version of it, because of the fact that we do still have a dedicated stream pick in this pool. So basically a bit more of the same. Basically a comfort pick, like I said, for the more rice oriented left in the bracket. But we move on to rice 3. It's going to be Chon's Ghost. And looking at the notes here, the prevalent note of this chart is that it's very experimental in charting. There's a lot of random snaps found throughout. They equated it to somewhat of a 1-key dump chart with how some of these patterns get overlaid. And you get these 3-note gallops into the 1-note afterward, can kind of get lost in there, and you start to see the bit of freeform content. You can't play these streams straight as we continue moving along. And I mentioned in the last map, glad to see some maps over 2 minutes. This one's only 1:30, so gonna pay dearly with your score if you start to overrun some of these. HRC 200s raining down. This is the most amount of 200s I've seen in one of these showcases so far.
Consider this as like a gamble pick.
Yeah, because of the fact that it's so easy to trip up on some of these streams that in practice you can probably swing it, but when the nerves start to hit, and especially because of how tight some of those bursts can get, you really need to pay attention to where your hands are at any given time. Because if you lose track, I mean, like I've said before on some of these streams, you can just kiss that entire section goodbye. And just like
those
that,
are
it is over.
80 BPM. Yeah, thankfully with this map being very short. And hey guys, how about setting a 900 PP play on this map, please? This will be your stream pick.
I have PTSD from this song.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, it's nice seeing it here. It'll be very interesting to take as to how long some of these streams do get. Increasing the BPM, I believe, from last round, going up to 180 now. I think last round was 176, 170, somewhere around there. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. And I usually am, so. And
these streams are basically mapped to nothing.
I mean, it's the drum in the background, the build-up.
Oh,
Then you go back into the piano. You go from the background to the foreground in terms of what you're playing. And I imagine the streams are basically going to be mapped to the drums as we continue along. But there's a pretty decent wind up before we get to that point. And we still continue with the melody in terms of the charting.
yeah, and when I think of like anything mania related when it comes to mapping, I thought it would be more or less to a piano, which is I'm actually kind of scared to see this final stream because end time.
Oh, no, it was a long piano run.
It.
Yeah, it's a really long piano run. What was I saying? Completely forgot how the song went. But I mean,
oh my!
Ooh, you get into those 1/8s in between, so you're pushing it to 360 now in terms of those streams. But honestly, with how easily some players were able to handle Angel Dust, this should once again be a bit of a walk in the park. Sure, you're starting to push the ceiling in terms of overall comfort with some players in terms of their alternating skill, but if you keep this dead center, the transitions aren't as hard as Angel Dust was, so there aren't that many varied streams in terms of the notes, and it's very easy to follow along with what's going on. One last burst, and then you get into the ending, and yeah, no, this is similar to Rice 2, probably going to be the pick a lot of players lean towards if they're wanting to get some comfortable Rice picks under their belt. So watch out for that one. Speed increase, but I think the difficulty might not be as high as people are expecting, outside of maybe the stamina requirement for it. But with that being said, we move on to the first LN pick of the round, and it is going to be Warzone by Boom Kitty.
Yeah, Warzone by Boom Kitty. I was told this is like Lemon Treat.
It's a successor to the LN1 from the last 2 rounds. That being said, it does get a little bit more technical. The releases do get a little bit more challenging, so you're not just like autopiloting 1/4, 1/8 LN streams the entire time. You do actually need to sort of pay attention to where you're releasing at certain times, but overall, it doesn't depart that far at points, so maybe a bit of a gamble pick for players that don't really want to dive into the full LN pool.
And a little bit of a burst before we get into this pretty tricky LN section.
Yeah, it's pretty telegraphed still. The longer LNs and a very... Oh, the doublets. Oh, God. Okay, so it quickly turns the page on you before diving back into the more steady 1/4 streams with the longer LN anchors in between. So if you can get down the transitions, maybe practice those middle sections, you should be able to get through this, and then we get into the 1/4. So you can sort of autopilot it as you get into those transitions. So you just got to watch out for those Reno gallops. And outside of that, I mean, like they mentioned, it's basically a harder version of LN1 from the last 2 rounds. A sneaky little doublet there in that stream. Gotta watch out for that. Don't want to lose a run to it. But that will do it for the first LN. Another pretty short song, 1 minute 50. And we can move on to LN2. And it's gonna be Hot Chocolate by Dark Cat.
Yeah, very... I was just picturing the background with seals instead of rabbits.
Oh, they should have photoshopped it. Oh well. We'll pay for the subscription next time. But this is a little bit simpler in terms of charting than Faster was from round of 16. At least that's what the notes say. We'll find out in a second. But there are some sneaky doublets thrown in to this chart that makes it a little bit harder in terms of approachability. Maybe not as sight read friendly. Hey, you can see the drop comes down, and as we continue on, just some 1/4 streams, nothing too bad. Gotta watch out for those longer holds at the ends of some of those sections. Yeah, continue on. A bit of
and
a break here.
this is more approachable than faster, I would the notes say.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot less variance in terms of release timing. You're not having to think about some of those integrated streams, but then we get into this doublet section, and this is where I imagine that section transitioning into the middle portion is going to be where a lot of the good runs go to fall apart. And the great LM players are going to be able to combo their way through that, really take advantage of their opponent as we make our way into the back half now officially.
Yeah, back half of this map to go. As some of those triplets do sort of arise, but this is at 160 as well, and OD6 too.
Yeah, it helps with the release lenience. That being said, with it being that lax, you can kind of spike some of these streams, especially when the 1/8 start to come out. But they're not repetitive enough to cause much of an issue. They're, like I said, telegraphed enough to be able to predict, but I imagine at least one person is going to note lock on at least one of those bursts this coming weekend.
As we continue forward, probably going to be the same as we get into the outro. And that will pretty much conclude LN2.
Yeah, pretty straightforward chart. Some tricky patterns in there. I think the inclusion of some of those doublets going into releases might be a bit of a pain point, but probably approachable compared to faster. I know faster was kind of avoided, but we continue on and we're going to go into the first hybrid, and it's going to be quality control.
Yeah. And we actually gave no notes on this. So we're going in completely blind.
What we do know is that it was made by Sparks, so expect some interesting rhythms, I would imagine, as we continue on. And this is one of the longer charts in this pool already, 2 minutes 49. Gonna see a nice blend of rice interspersed with these LNs. But this one also has a pretty telegraphed melody, so you should be able to get through these LN sections relatively unscathed. There aren't really too many technical sections, but you get some of these buzzes and you get those 1/8s making their appearance every now and again, so definitely got to watch out for them as we transition on into the second third.
And here we go, more of these 1/8s.
Oh boy.
This is our more physically
that's
demanding.
A really long one.
I would say this is our more physically demanding
yeah,
hybrid
for sure.
pick.
In terms of what you need to do, especially with those elongated 1/8 bursts. Sure, you can handle the 5-note ones, but what happens when you essentially double the length of it? Being able to maintain the hand control through some of those sections is going to be very important. And I mean, to be fair, the 1/4s are going to be build-up sections for players to regain some of the accuracy. It'll be very interesting to see players try and approach it, especially because of the fact that there's an LN right at the end of that burst. So once again, similar to some of the other charts we have seen, overstreaming is going to be punished severely with that slider break potentially if you lose control of where your hands are going. And that'll do it for the first hybrid in this pool.
Yeah, and we will move on to hybrid 2 now, and that will be Mpuxa, I believe?
Yeah, Mpuxa, Puxa, Sayura. And according to the notes, this song is the reason JOKE3 even exists, according to Jay. They enjoy the Taiko chart so much, and apparently Spark said in a voice chat that if Sayura ever became featured artist, they were going to make JOKE3, and now here we are. Sayura is a featured artist now, and we are now holding this tournament halfway through already, basically. It is going to be a more speed-oriented hybrid. It's pretty dense, not as overbearing. Maybe people are thinking speedy hybrid, they think of the tiebreaker from last weekend, but not going to be that bad. And it's less techy overall, but the speed is probably going to make up for it. You can already see it come to a bit of a forefront here.
Yeah, that was a very long 204 ppm stream right there. And this is, I believe, one of our first maps to reach over that 4-star cap. I believe, besides some of our tiebreakers and maybe some of our denser stream picks.
Yeah, I think Angel Dust crested it by a tiny bit, but
yeah,
we're starting to fully commit to stuff going over 4 stars because of the fact that the density and the speed becomes a bit of an issue, especially when you get those short 1/8 LN streams interspersed in between. You can kind of get away with playing them like rice notes, so you shouldn't really pay them too much attention, but some of these longer releases are probably going to be a bit of a pain point for some of the players remaining.
Yeah, as we get into the final 1/8 of this map, more of these 204 streams do appear more rapidly at you, kind of just out of nowhere, mixed in with these, I guess, triple.
A lot of triples.
I don't know my one key terminology. Okay.
We make it up as we go along, but I mean overall, pretty approachable.
Yeah.
Nothing egregious, I would say, as we move on to Hybrid 3. And if I said egregious for Hybrid 2, this one might push it a little bit. Notes lovingly say, pseudo tiebreaker. It covers a lot of skills. You're going to see a lot of bursts and LNs in this chart, along with the usual 1/4s that we're used to seeing in between.
And yeah, oh wow,
Yeah.
348 BPM streams. Yum.
Yeah, usually in quick bursts, like 3 notes, 5 notes, they're pretty easy going. But like I mentioned in one of the earlier picks, you start to elongate those even just the tiniest bit, and you start to lose a lot of players very quickly because of the fact that they lose count of how many notes are in that stream, and overstreams become a thing. But we continue on. I think they also mentioned it's a pseudo tiebreaker because of the length, just shy of 4 minutes. Now officially the longest chart in this pool for now. We'll wait until the tiebreaker comes out. But going into the second quarter, build up another 1/8 stream, and we get into a bit of an LN tech section. Nice couple of doublets thrown in there for good measure, keeping you on your toes, keeping you honest.
Yeah.
With a 1/8 stream right after.
Yeah, I would say this is our coordination hybrid, sort of. Definitely have to coordinate and handle those LNs very, very carefully.
Yeah, for sure. And as we continue on, I imagine we're going to see a bit of a dichotomy begin to develop with these hybrids. Last round, there were a couple of really techie picks with lower BPMs that kind of gave some players issue because of the fact that they needed to really concentrate on what they needed to do. And there's been a bit of a trend where if you start to crank up the BPM, they can kind of go into a bit of an autopilot and kind of just feel their way through some of these structures. And it'll be interesting to see that kind of theory get tested on a pick like this because of the fact that you're seeing so many elements. It's kind of just a mishmash of everything we've seen so far. And like I said, these 1/8 bursts really going to keep players honest in their reading skills as they continue to do this chart if they want to make it unscathed. I would not be surprised if we saw very few FCs on this.
Yeah, and as we do get into we're still, oh my god, there's still a quarter left.
Yeah.
If we hit this with,
just keep going.
Without missing, good for you.
Yeah, this might be one of those picks where if you can combo for this long, you probably already won the point. It's just the accuracy that kind of needs to stay in check. But ultimately, outside of those elongated 1/8 and some of these bursts into the LNs, might be swingable for at least the top seeds remaining. And if you feel confident enough to swing this in the lower brackets, then I mean, good luck to you. This is probably gonna be the riskiest pick for a lot of players. Would not be surprised to see it banned. If not for the length, then probably for the difficulty in trying to get a consistent run on it.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. As if though it wasn't already hard enough, a quick burst of 3-note gallops right at the end to potentially ruin a really good run. Very nice.
But what can be more trickier than SV? Huh? Wait, are we in the SV pick yet? No, we got a speed pick.
We got a speed pick.
I'm kind of jumping the gun here.
Ever so slightly.
But
258 BPM.
Here we go. I mean, speed is speed.
For sure. Speed is speed. And we start to see the real crux of it. These 1/8 bursts are going to be the main tail.
Yeah, as we see lots of triplets in here, and especially at this very high BPM at 256.
Yeah, what does that amount to when you start to do the math?
I have no idea. I think so.
That is ridiculous, but honestly, you can. They don't happen for a long enough time to be much of a bother, but your accuracy might suffer a little bit as you make your way through this chart. We saw actually a lot of players avoiding this pick or this pick in the last round because of the fact that these bursts become a little bit of a nightmare to control, especially on just one key.
Yeah, I would not blame them one bit. This looks to be a hassle.
Yeah, you get these 3-note, or basically just, yeah, there's back-to-back-to-back triple gallops. And like I said, just controlling your hands through some of those bursts is basically, I'm basically just a broken record at this point with saying those 1/8s are going to be constantly appearing. But I mean, that's essentially what these speed picks are testing. It's an interesting one. I think those are 1/5 snaps at the ends of some of those 1/8s. So definitely gotta watch out for that. It's not always gonna end on a 1/4 at the end.
Yeah, and we still have a quarter of this map to go. I would be surprised. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would probably equate to around like 506 or 516, I think.
Somewhere around there.
Good luck. I think not even just doing 2-finger alternate. I think you have to 4-finger alternate those streams.
I'm pretty sure there will be some players that are gonna attempt to 4-finger roll. You don't need to name drop them like that, but there's definitely like there are definitely players capable of swinging a performance on this, but would not be surprised if we started to really push the ceiling of what players are comfortable doing. Maybe some testing on other keys may be required. I know I play on right shift. Spacebar might be needing to be employed here to get some of those rolls down. But with that being said, we are now finally at the SV chart of the round, otherwise known as the permaban for a lot of players.
Yeah, and I believe correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but we have a new mapper to the scene. Welcome in Pataraj, I believe, who actually mapped this. That's what I got from Jay. Jay actually sent me these maps since I'm not a player, so I can see. And oh man, DJ Mag.
That is a disgusting slowdown. You gotta trust yourself that you're staying in time during that roll. And
go
ahead.
Jay said, oh, Potaraj did the SV last week. Okay, thank you, Albion, for the, thank you for that. I'm just name dropping today, but
Yeah.
that's how I roll. But anyway, note from this, a little reminiscent of anti-hero in style, but has more raw difficulty. And yeah, I can definitely see the anti-hero type SV in this.
Yeah, a lot of teleports, slowdowns. And like I said, just trusting yourself that when you get to those slowdown sections that you're remembering what the structure is as you play along through it. And if it is reminiscent of anti-hero, it probably has a lot of very repetitive motifs in terms of pattern structure. It's just that the SV gimmick that you're reading at that time is varying. Hopefully there's not a slowdown section where you kind of have to ghost tap your way through it. Ah, there it is. There's the slowdown section. You gotta. It's the most daunting single note of your life if you're trying to read through this.
Yeah, it can't really be an SV map with some troll teleports. And I think Potaraj is well known for throwing those in there, for kind of keeping everyone on their feet to make sure that they're like just not going through this on a couple plays.
Yeah, definitely not sight read friendly. If you're not going to practice this, just ban it, please. Because I would not be surprised if we saw at least one person try and brave through this on a sight read and just like smack a C or a B on it.
And also just a little another little mistake correction. Potaraj did all the SV maps actually for JOKE3. So
far.
Yes, so far. We might have some switch ups, who knows? Might get some new SV mappers to the scene. But so far that's what the budget could get us.
Yeah, so we get the finest French SV. But that will do it for the final regular chart in this pool. All that's left is to reveal what the quarterfinals tiebreaker is going to be, and it is going to be Streets Ione.
Yeah. And it's going to be pronounced Ione, and oh, okay, this is what the note gave me. Good luck, LMFAO. This chart is messed up.
Yeah, verbatim. That's when you know you're in for a good time. If you thought last week's tiebreaker was hard, this is going to be your gateway into what to expect going into stuff like finals.
But yeah, this is going to be your tiebreaker for our round of 8 quarterfinals. And oh man, those streams that immediately bump up to, what is that?
Like 340?
340?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's less about the speed at that complexity. It's more about the length of the notes. Just trying to keep in time. It was like a 5 burst, a 7, even a 9 at times. And that's even assuming that that's an odd counted burst. If you have an even, you're ending on an alternate hand, and like I said before, I mean, losing track of where you are in a stream is the most devastating thing that can happen to you when you're trying to combo your way through some of these charts. And that is not a 1-8 stream. I believe that's a 1-7, but regardless, you get some pretty interesting snaps. Cannot autopilot your way through some of them, lest you basically fumble the outro of it.
Yeah, as we are getting into our first third of this map, things are looking to have simmered down just a tiny bit, but things will probably bump back up, and there it is. Another 240 just out of just nowhere.
Yeah, just keep you on your toes. Just keep you awake. Keep like I've said before, keep you honest through some of those sections. Because this is a great opportunity to build up combo, build up some of that accuracy to either extend the lead or to claw back some of the deficit. And here we continue on. We're officially in the back half now. And we get a tiny bit of a break. Bit of a build up here. Some 1/4s. Nothing too spectacular. An odd time signature stream to get back into this next section.
Just kind of just throwing you off guard. I think, and oh my, this is 2,000 in combo all with one key. So already you have bashed your spacebar at least 2,000 times in this. Or actually, probably not your spacebar, but just whatever you use to play one key with. 2,000 times, which is kind of scary and kind of draining at the same time.
Now you got to consider that the LNs do count for 2 notes. So
yeah,
maybe not 2,000, like, but it's a pretty high note count. And as we continue on to the last quarter, yeah, you're approaching 2,000. And you get a bit of a reprise of that introduction. And it's really just it's just keeping it steady on those 1/8. If you can do that, then you probably have an advantage on this chart. Because outside of that, there's really not a lot of curveballs thrown at you. There's still this outro, but as things start to calm down, you go back into these 1/4s, and you can kind of disrespect some of the LN lengths here and kind of cruise to the ending. We'll call that a mulligan at the very end. And that will do it for the, I keep wanting to say round of, for the quarterfinals map pool showcase.
You could say round of 8.
I mean, is it technically round of 8? There's, I think, 12 players left. But regardless, there's more than 12. I've never been good at double elimination brackets. But all that aside, that will do it. The map pool will be posted eventually. Schedules will come out eventually. They're gonna start working on them very soon. And
I think we have something also. Attention losers bracket players. Sparky, do you want to take the mic on this one to explain it, or do you want me
to? Do not need a second invitation. If you are in the lower bracket, this is the first weekend of conditional matches. You will have to play 2 matches this weekend to make it to the semifinals. Be sure to double check the times for both of your matches and reschedule accordingly. You will have, I believe, 3 that you need to watch out for because one of them won't happen. But outside of that, we definitely don't want somebody winning their first match, forgetting about the second one, and just dropping out of the tournament because of the fact that they didn't look at the schedule. So be sure to keep that in mind. And outside of that, Walmart, do you have anything else to add?
No, I really don't, but just thank you all for watching, and we see you all later.
Good luck, y'all.
Stay in school.
Come on.